As a fitness content consumer, I can personally say that nowadays it's become more convoluted than ever to understand what to actually do in the gym. And it's really just as simple as going in, taking as many sets to failure as possible, and going home. But first, we have to see what the science says. According to the latest science, the main principles are specificity, progressive overload, and recovery. There are others like individuality and variation, but these are the main three that we'll be talking about today. Specificity just means train what you want to progress, right? So for example, you want to get better endurance, you'll train for that by running, swimming, etc., right? So in this case, when we're talking exclusively about muscle building or hypertrophy, our goal is to train for that exclusively and not really focus on all the others, right? This is just the basic definition of specificity. Moving on to progressive overload, it is the real driver of progress. This is where you'll see your progress. You'll be going into the gym day in, day out, and hopefully be seeing progress, or at least often enough that you'll know that, hey, at least we're gaining muscle. The most simple way to progressively overload is to either one, add more weight each time you work out to any exercise, it doesn't really matter. But for example, if you're taking your chest, you add more weight to the bench, even if it's by a little amount, it can be half a pound, 2 pounds. And if you're in kilos, you can add 2 kilos, 4 kilos, doesn't really matter. But what matters is you either add more weight, more reps, or more sets. Or this is also something you can do. You can control the weight better. Like for example, when you did the exercise the first time, your form wasn't really the best, but the second time you control it better. This is also a way to progressively overload, and this works really much better for exercises that you're not really, used to. Out of all the principles, progressive overload is the one that'll actually move you forward, getting stronger the bigger over time. Now, the third point is fatigue management. Obviously, recovery matters. Training breaks down muscle. Rest is what builds it back up. Now, I'm not sure if this is backed up by science anymore. However, if you don't recover properly, if you don't get enough sleep, progress will slow down for you regardless at what point you are in your training journey. This means you need to have enough rest days, proper sleep, and you don't have to push past failure, right? There are ways to push past failure that you should not be doing, especially if you're a beginner. Now, I always target myself more towards beginners as I'm not that experienced. I was a beginner, and until recently, I feel like I was. This is why I feel like I do have the experience to talk to beginners, but not really command beginners, as some intermediates or advanced people might say. Now, you have to, as a beginner, you have to focus on the basics. For your first, 2 to 3 years in the gym, your focus should be basic movements. You don't really need niche exercises, that are only better by 1 to 2% if you really think about it. And really, they won't matter as much as just simply training hard. The basics will give you 90% of your results if you do them correctly and consistently. Now, we have to talk about why failure matters this much for progressive overload. Failure matters because effort must stay consistent. This means you need to know if you actually push yourself to the limit or close enough to it, or if you didn't at all. I'll give you an example. If I in week 1 stopped early and didn't go to failure or close to failure and got 10 reps, and week 2 I pushed hard and I got 12 reps, does this mean I progressed, or does it mean I gave it my all? See, that is a dilemma that is in the lifter's mind who doesn't go to failure every single time. There's an inconsistency of effort which can determine the output of your workouts, and the output of your workouts will determine the output on your physique. And this is exactly why training close to failure is extremely important. This removes all guesswork and makes your progress measurable. I'm not saying you have to track each and every single workout, but it's better if you do. Now, we have to obviously also talk about how often should you train to failure. I personally think if you're a beginner, you have really no reason to not go to failure on each and every set, right? Because being realistic, as a beginner, you don't know what failure feels like. So just thinking that you're going to failure is going to produce some gains. And as you try harder and harder each week, you're eventually gonna be able to reach the point of failure and understand what it truly feels like. And then onwards, it'll help you in your workout. To give you a rough number, I'd say 2/3 of your sets should be taken to failure. But if you're really new and you have never worked out before, I'd say just taking your last set to failure is perfectly fine. This means if you have 3 sets of bicep curls, you train the first first two normally however you would do it otherwise, but the last set of the third set you take to failure. This is a standard for beginners, and if you've been training for a while, you know what failure is and you are decently comfortable pushing yourself, then I'd say 2/3 of your set is actually going to be taken to failure, and then the first set I'd say you could say as a warm-up set or as just a regular set as you do it otherwise. That'll be all from my side. Good luck to you all. I hope this video helped, and take care.